Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, I want to start us off with an animation of the last 10 days or so of radar reflectivity, so watch this animation. You're going to see in this animation this one region right in through here repeatedly get showers and thunderstorms. We've had boundaries that have stalled out across that area, plus an ample supply of Gulf moisture. And as you watch this animation play out here to the start of September, you really see the pattern setting itself up into this kind of ring of fire configuration with the emergence of Gordon right here at the very end. When you put it all together, the last couple of weeks, we have our percent of normal figure there over on the left-hand side. I've been showing this a lot lately. It's been very dry where you've been inside of that ridge, which has primarily been here along the East Coast. And then wherever the precipitation feeds on that Gulf moisture, kind of rides on that boundary, that nearly stationary boundary that's been right in through this area, we've not only seen over 200% of normal rainfall, but look at my map again over here. Remember, in this map, the reds start at 100% of normal, and the darkest blues are at 1,000% of normal. And that means parts of Kansas, getting into parts of far eastern Nebraska, northern Missouri, a big chunk of Iowa, and a big chunk of northern Illinois, Wisconsin, and southern Minnesota are seeing between 300 and 1,000% normal precipitation. It's been extremely wet. Flooding has been the name of the game, and we're still talking about it in this video. In the last 3 days alone, we have seen several regions across the country get over 6 inches of precipitation. Notice I make a clear break in my colors at right around 6 inches, where we have Gordon coming on shore here in parts of the Florida Panhandle, Alabama, Mississippi. Already had over 6 inches. Some onshore flow down here in Texas, Louisiana-Texas border, greater than 6 inches. Parts of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin. Remember, this part of Wisconsin just a week ago had 10 inches of rain. So we've had so much rain. And if you're feeling left out in parts of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, kind of getting into this region, Kentucky, Tennessee, it's coming. The rain is coming. It's going to fill this in. So let's talk about that all-important forecast. By the way, I wanted to show you a pretty cool image here taken by Amanda. She's a student studying atmospheric sciences at the College of DuPage in Chicago. And just a beautiful image here of some of the storms went through parts of northern Illinois. We have had quite a bit of severe weather with this. Multiple reports of severe winds and certainly several reports of tornadoes a few days ago. But the flow pattern I really want you to key on is this one. Okay, so this is what the flow of the atmosphere looks like on Thursday. We've got several big players. The first thing, though, that I want to discuss, and I don't often discuss this in the videos because it's a little bit complicated thing to talk about, but we are right now in what we call a wave number 4 pattern. And that's going to be very important because that pattern is going to repeat itself in about a week. And that will be huge for Florence, which is right now spinning here out in the open Atlantic. Now, what is a wave number 4 pattern? Well, there's a deep trough here and a deep trough here just off the west coast. There's 2 troughs with a big ridge in the middle. There's also another trough sitting here, and there's one on the other side of there going into parts of Europe and Russia. So there's 4 deep troughs when you stare down at the top of our planet right on the North Pole. Now, why we care about that is because this pattern tends to kind of get stuck in this configuration for, could be, maybe 10 plus days. Now, what does that mean? That means we're going to have to watch out again in about a week for another building ridge out west. Now, not another Gordon. This is Gordon coming up the gut of the Mississippi River here. But potentially we have to watch for this ridge here when Florence, about 7 or 8 days from now, is much closer, well, maybe 6 or 7 days, much closer to the East Coast. You see, this is everything, and it was this big ridge that has set up a boundary sitting right here across parts of the Great Lakes states getting back over into the Central Plains as part of all that precipitation. So the pattern diagnosis here is everything. And I'll tell you something, what got us started in this wave number 4 pattern was a lot of typhoon activity. Remember we talked about that way over here. So this is it. Let's get into it. Now, starting us off around 11 p.m. on Wednesday, our stationary boundary was kind of fixed right in through here. And here's Gordon. Now, watch as I animate this forward, okay? As we push forward with this, what do we see? We saw overnight lots of showers and thunderstorms moving across parts of northern Illinois, but really kind of stuck on this boundary and through here. Gordon went spinning into parts of Mississippi and then into Arkansas. And with time on the day on Thursday, there it goes through Arkansas, and it starts to make this turn north as we get into the day on Friday. That's going to come into parts of Missouri and Illinois. So here it is now making that turn to the north. And it looks as though as we get in early in the morning on Saturday, the rains from Gordon, which will have dropped in some locations, 3, 4, 4+ inches of rain will then combine with the rainfall we're getting in the overnight hours on Wednesday and Thursday morning in northern Illinois to potentially produce quite a lot of rainfall in through this area right in through here. Now, on the backside of that boundary, look up here in the northern plains. Things are relatively dry. Even getting back into parts of Nebraska, things are going to dry out after a wet start to this week. We will also be seeing storms fire right along the front range of the Rocky Mountains. You see it right in through here. In fact, if I play this again, let's just start this over. There you go. See them blowing up right there on the front range. And this is all due to that flow pattern we just discussed. Where's it not going to be wet over the next couple of days? Really down here in the southeastern states, still under the dominance of that higher atmospheric pressure. Now let's stretch this out by looking at the long-range European model. So as I click play on this one, what we're going to see happen here is let's get through Friday and into Saturday morning. So this again is the animation you just saw. So there's that rain filling in to parts of Missouri and Illinois by the time we get into the day on Saturday, really pushing heavily into Illinois on Sunday. So this again, the remnants of Gordon. Now as we move forward with this, what we're going to see is Gordon has transitioned, of course, to become what we call extratropical, but it's still using a bunch of tropical moisture, and then it's going to push east. So look at this. By the time we get into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, see the animation I'm going there? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we're now spreading that across Indiana, Ohio, getting up into the northeastern states. And so that will be the exit of that system. Now look over there on the far eastern side out there in the Atlantic Ocean. You see that kind of, watch right in through here. This is what Wednesday's 12Z model run from the European model suggested Florence is going to do. And we've got to talk about all of this. So first, let's put it together. One, we have a stationary boundary sitting right here to start off the forecast time period early Thursday morning. We're either going to be watching Gordon start here on Thursday, get through about here on Friday, across Illinois on Saturday, then moving off to the northeast by Monday. During that same time period, we have a high pressure system that's going to be sliding here out into the open Atlantic with time. And here's what the current model run is suggesting. Now, there's still a lot of spread in this. But because there's clockwise flow around this high, and of course there's an upper level ridge here as well, that right now could stir Florence here toward the East Coast. Big uncertainty, but we're going to have to watch it very, very carefully. Certainly though, if you are in this area, over the next 5 days, we are watching for substantial amounts of precipitation in pockets. A bunch right down here when you get into parts of the lower mid-Mississippi River Valley, and then again right in through this stretch once we get into the weekend. So we're watching a couple of different areas for some heavy rainfall, but this is kind of our diagnosis of the overall pattern here. Now, Florence right now is sitting and spinning out here as a Category 3 strength storm. It is forecast to weaken a little bit throughout the day on Thursday into Friday, then get back up to major hurricane status once we get into Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So we'll have to watch this carefully, but this is only a 5-day forecast graphic. We want to know where's it going to go the 5 days that follow that. Well, we can look to our long-range models to get some ideas here. Now look, the 51-member ensemble in the European model has pretty good agreement through the next 5 days as to where Florence is going to go. That's not, too terribly much model spread. But from there on, while the operational run takes it right in through here, we see substantial spread in the potential forecast. And I need you to understand something. A lot of us are trying to look at analogs. In other words, when we have hurricanes that sit right here, what did they typically do throughout history? Well, honestly, we can't really rely on analogs for this one because it's a very special circumstance. The special circumstances are that wave number 4 pattern, and that is setting up for an interesting situation in the northeastern part of the United States and North Atlantic, which might possibly steer, and the word here is possibly, steer Florence toward the United States. Now, what is it that's going to do this? Well, check this out. Okay, by the time we get through in the day on Thursday, we see our big ridge. See it right over there, moving on off to the East Coast. And there's our trough that comes sweeping through up here. Now, in the meantime, Gordon, which is not going to be seen very well in this forecast, is now sitting over parts of Illinois. So the ridge is pushed north into Canada. Now watch what happens as I get into the weekend. Once I get into the weekend, Gordon transitions extratropical here. So this is what's left of Gordon. We then have this ridge that's sitting here. That's that high pressure center I showed you a few moments ago. That's moving through parts of eastern Canada. And a deep trough coming in over here on the west coast. Now watch these 3 things play together with Florence, which is over here. As I continue to move this forward, what makes Florence so unique is this. This is a massive 5,940 meter ridge. That's a big ridge. sitting right here. And the flow around these things is most certainly clockwise. And that will be the steering wind, at least with the operational forecast model run from the European on Wednesday, taking this toward the East Coast. Major uncertainty. Please don't leave this video thinking I've got this sucker nailed down. I don't. There's a lot of uncertainty here. But watch as we continue on with this. As I get all the way past next Wednesday, so this is a week out, and we start to get into the end of next week, we then see our pattern reestablishing itself. Now notice this. We have got over here a deep trough in the west coast, a ridge building out west. That ridge extends here over eastern Canada, and the flow around it might tuck Florence here into the east coast of the United States. We even have a little bit of a resemblance of a trough feature that's coming back into Illinois, kind of like what we just saw with Gordon. Now, it's not another Gordon, but you see that what that wave number 4 pattern kind of means here. Because that pattern doesn't tend to translate east or west with time, it reinforces itself. Now, as we get all the way out to the end of this, what we do see is that the ridge reestablishes itself out west, and we have to talk about that. Now, that means through the next 5 days, in terms of temperature patterns, where all that moisture comes streaming in like this, okay? And where that upper level high pressure system starts off, here at the end of this week, it's warm here along the East Coast getting back into the Eastern Corn Belt, but then a lot of cloud cover and cooler weather and some very heavy rains coming in just like this. All right. So that's kind of your pattern through the next 5 days. So this gets us through Monday. Then beyond that, remember the ridge reestablishes itself like this. And there's a trough here off the west coast. So that's why we start to see the heat rebuilding back into the middle part of the country once we get past this weekend. So we've got a lot of things going on here, and this is September. September is notoriously difficult to predict because it's not just hurricane activity in the Atlantic and the Gulf and the Caribbean. It's typhoons out in the Western Pacific that could ultimately, mess up the flow of the atmosphere, change it, make it so unpredictable. Now, what I want to finish with, though, is this. We know it's been extremely wet. How do we get it to dry down? Well, what we have to watch for in the forecast is a pattern like this. I went out and grabbed the 13 driest Septembers for the primary Corn Belt. And what we want to see is a big ridge getting established probably in Montana. So deep trough here over in the Gulf of Alaska, building into a large ridge that then dives down into a bit of a trough over the East Coast. Now, why do we like that? Well, if we can get an upper level ridge sitting here that tends to produce higher atmospheric pressure at the surface there. And the flow around that is clockwise, and that shuts down some Gulf moisture. So we need to shove the ridge pretty far to the west if we'd like to dry down those regions where we have some parts of the Corn Belt that are at 1,000% of normal rainfall in the last 2 weeks. So we're talking harvest. This is what we're going to have to be paying attention to. Hey, that was a lot to discuss, but I hope it kind of gave you a flavor of some of the things we're dealing with in meteorology right now. It's a complicated pattern. My hat's off to all the meteorologists out there trying to figure this one out. It's tricky. But with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, and I really certainly look forward to giving you that next update that'll come out after the weekend. So we hope you look forward to that update coming out on Monday morning. In the meantime, head to agrible.com to learn how you can get real-time sustainability and agronomic insights all at the touch of a button. So I'll keep analyzing the weather, give you my latest update early Monday morning. Thank you.